that cold front, temperatures are going to be slightly lower, so a little bit below average for the time of year, generally peaking low single figures in the north, mid single figures towards the south. A bit of a breeze, particularly towards the east, that's going to add to the chilly feel to things. Now, as we go through towards this evening, there could be a few spots of showery rain affecting parts of Orkney and more so Shetland. Otherwise, across the rest of Scotland, it's looking dry. There'll be some clear skies as we go into the start of the night for most places here, and similar across parts of Northern Ireland. As a result, we're quickly going to see a bit of frost developing. Meanwhile, across much of England and Wales, a bit of cloud here and there, still a few showers towards some eastern coastal parts. Most places, though, ending the day on the same dry note that we'll have had through much of the day. Overnight, with a lot of dry, calm, clear weather, we are going to see temperatures plummeting. A fairly widespread frost across most parts, perhaps towards the east-southeast of England, a bit more cloud, maybe some fog here, so less frosty, but for most places it is going to be a chilly, frosty start to the day on New Year's Eve. Then through New Year's Eve itself, well, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, and it stays fine across southern parts through much of the day and into the evening. Further north, a slightly different story. There will be some showery rain feeding its way further southwards, and this could turn a bit wintry, some sleet or snow likely over higher ground, and more wet and at times windy weather to come as we go into New Year's Day across northern parts of Scotland.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across social media. We are truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A83 is currently restricted in both directions at Loughnell Street, Loch Gilphead due to emergency roadworks. Heading to Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between Junction 22 and Junction 21A has a vehicle fire causing 1 out of 4 lanes to close. However, normal traffic conditions should resume shortly, between 9:30 and 9:45 this morning. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is facing major engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton, as well as Rugby. Cross-country services are also experiencing major work delays in the Cambridge area. Stay up to date at gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, you're absolutely right. Spot on. I couldn't help feeling that perhaps it was actually just a joke. And they were going to come back in 2 years' time and say, we took you all in. It was, in fact, a joke. Now we're going to produce something more serious, because it's absolutely hilarious and ridiculous. Commercial suicide, I described it as.
Well, the individual behind it is no more. What would you like to see from the brand? Presumably not people with asymmetric haircuts in pink dresses with sledgehammers doing precisely zero to do with cars.
Well, again, absolutely, you're spot on. I mean, it's just totally unrelated to cars at all. There wasn't even a car in the advert. Jaguar was built on style, and that brought passion for cars. That's what made them different. I remember many years ago, a Jaguar executive in the States saying to me, people say, I like my Mercedes, but I love my Jaguar. It's all about passion. Style engendered that. That's what we've got to have. We need to see a proper, more traditional, stylish, real Jaguar that can build on the brand and the heritage of the past.
OK, Philip Paulson, I'm going to put you on the spot now. If you're in charge of the next Jaguar advert, what would it look like?
As diametrically opposite and different as it possibly could be from what they produced. I suppose, I mean, I live a little in the past, I admit, although I also think I'm hopefully realistic about the current situation and everything, the present. But I'd like to see the heritage shown. Jaguar were not afraid to talk in the past about their heritage, the Le Mans wins back in the 50s, the E-Type in the 60s. This is what added excitement and luster to the brand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and wanted to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
It's 9:30 on Tuesday, the 30th of December, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, the government is facing a growing political storm as the Foreign Secretary launches an urgent review into what she calls serious failures in the case of the freed Egyptian activist Al-Fattah. Yvette Cooper says neither she nor the Prime Minister were told about his historic tweets, comments they now describe as abhorrent. But Downing Street still says that he is welcome in Britain.
And what does it mean to be British? Well, the number of people who believe that you have to be born in this country to be truly British has almost doubled in 2 years. So are we a nation defined by shared values or an ethnic community united by common ancestry?
And just inches from death, British heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua is recovering in hospital after a car crash in Nigeria claimed the lives of 2 of his closest friends. We'll be bringing you the latest live from Nigeria throughout the programme.
And the New Year's honours list is out, but with awards handed to a police chief constable accused of discriminating against white people, and also the head of the National Trust who put, get this, vegan tampons in the men's toilets. Yep. Are these gongs just for services to woke?
But one very well-deserved honour has gone to the D-Day veteran Mervyn Kirsch, who has received a British Empire Medal, but he had strong words for the state of the country today.
It's disappointing as what's turned out now. I know we've had 80 years or 75 years. It has been.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Miriam, a lot of our viewers on gbnews.com/your say are saying that I'm not British because I was born abroad. I've got British parents, all my grandparents, my great-grandparents, British as well. Certainly sound rather British, I think you'd say. I feel very British. I was raised in Britain, but because my mum and dad were in Sweden, working in Sweden when I was born, loads of commentators saying I'm not truly British. So this is fascinating to me. Mick Day says, no, Charlie, you're not British then. Sorry about that. You are a Swede. Well, Sweden won't have me. They certainly don't see me as Swedish. Robert Williams says that I am British. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. But Morris says, who's got the Israeli flag in his name, has said, in my book, you are not British. Well, Morris,
Hang on, you are a citizen of Britain, but not a British citizen.
You are a citizen of Britain, but not a British citizen.
That kind of makes sense. So what about the reverse then? What about if a Swedish family came here, let's say on holiday, and while they were on holiday, a baby was born? Is that baby British?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Are they not truly Swedish?
Are they not truly Swedish?
So. I don't
by the
so.
accident of where you happen to be born?
Well, you know.
I think the answer is, Charlie, it's actually very complicated, and there are a lot of answers. There's obviously a legal answer to what does it mean to be a British citizen in terms of having a passport and the kind of legal rights. That's one answer. But there's a lot more to it, I think, about history and about shared identity. I don't like this word values, though. A value is just anything you say you want it to be.
Yes, I think we need to have a slightly more nuanced approach to this. We need to recognise when people have lost their Britishness, and I think we can say that some people, even if they have a British passport, they're not truly British. They might be administratively British. And Matt Goodwin, one of our colleagues, got into rather a lot of trouble earlier this year. I say trouble, he got criticised by The Guardian, they're not really the same thing, but The Guardian were upset with him because he made that point, and I think he was right to make that point. Would you say that the 7/7 bombers, were they truly British? I don't think so. They saw themselves as soldiers of Islam, pitting themselves against the British. I'd very happily say that they weren't British just because they had a passport. I don't see them as co-citizens in this country.
No, absolutely. It depends what you mean by a nation, doesn't it? We think of Britain as a nation. It has borders, it has a shared history, it has a government, it has a legal system. And there is absolutely a sense that anyone who is loyal to that system and is a member of the community can be British. But I think there's also something different about a family history that goes back hundreds of years. It's like if somebody joins your family, if someone marries into your family, you treat them just as well. But they're not a blood relative. It is different, isn't it?
Well, let's go across now and speak to the Professor of Politics at the University of Buckingham, Eric Kaufman, who is discussing this poll with us this morning. Good morning, Eric. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of these findings by the think tank, the IPPR?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure they're as earth-shaking as they're made out to be. I mean, I think there is a confusion when people answer these questions between what it takes to be a member of the community, sort of an exclusion criteria, which is generally pretty inclusive, and the critical mass of traits people think are important for defining Britain. So it's one thing to say anyone with any accent can be equally British, but it's another thing to say that if the country as a whole, if the majority of the population don't speak with a British accent, that country is equally British. It's not. So I think a lot of people are kind of confused in how they're answering this question. I think a lot of the issue around ancestry, for example, is about saying part of what makes Britain special in the world is that most people have a British ancestry, and that's important for British identity to me. It's not necessarily saying that somebody who isn't white can't be British. I mean, if you look at surveys, if you ask a question, do you need to be white to be British? Even Reform voters, the only, I think, 16 or 15% say you need to be white to be English. And the share who say you need to be white to be British is in single digits among Reform voters. So I think a lot of this is in how you're asking the question and what people think the question means.
Eric, do you think 50 or 100 years ago, before mass migration, this was even a topic that people debated? Was there even any question about what it meant to be British?
No, not really. I mean, there were questions certainly around Protestantism, for example, but not around ethnic composition due to the homogeneity of Britain and indeed most other West European countries, which had only 1 or 2% foreign born. So it was a completely different world. Now, in the US, there was this question. That's a separate topic, but I think not in Britain.
Now, Eric, there was a bit of a controversy earlier this year when Conservative MP Katie Lamb said that we needed a coherent culture. And so much of our discussion about Britishness, people who say that it can be more of a vague description, refer to a sense of values. But Katie Lamb was criticised for saying there should be a coherent culture. It does seem to me somewhat, though, that this definition of Britishness becoming so open, becoming just a general description of liberalness, doesn't really get to the heart of what it means to be British.
No, and in fact, those values are, far beyond Britain. They're kind of universal. They don't really define Britain. I think we kind of have to understand that having a thin culture that anyone can assimilate to is fine, and people can get along with a very thin culture as long as everyone speaks the language. But that's not satisfying or sort of authentic in a way a deeper, thicker culture is. You need to have, I think the way to sort of square this circle is to say, there can be a small number of people who have that thinner identity. That's absolutely fine, but you still need that critical mass of people with the thicker identity, which provides a good to the population as a whole. So you need to have that kind of core population with the deeper identity that will then endow the wider nation with a more secure sense of identity. The mistake I think some people, particularly liberals, make is to think, well, because some people can have a sort of thin identity and be included, therefore we can thin out the entire nation's identity and not have any problems. You need to have that kind of majority population with a thicker identity alongside people who may have a thinner identity. That's fine, but you can't just say we're going to go for a thin identity because it's more inclusive. and expect that that's going to actually satisfy these longings in much of the population.
But Eric, nobody can really define what that identity is. We talk about British values, but as you say, they're very kind of generic principles, tolerance and respect for the law that aren't, you know, characteristically British. Is it not more about history and having a shared history? There was a report by the Foundation for the History of Totalitarianism a few weeks ago that showed that only 1 in 4 young people know who Nelson is. How can we understand what it means to be British if we have no idea of our national story?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fair point. I mean, I think there is a certain minimum history that should be taught to all citizens. But I also think I'm also somewhat of a believer that you can't necessarily have a one-size-fits-all national identity. That is, different people from different possibly ethnic backgrounds, from different ideological backgrounds, are going to identify with different symbolic elements, and that's okay, as long as we're not preventing people, for example, who want to identify with having 10 generations in Britain, or identifying with deep history in Britain. So I think we can have some variation in the kind of myths and symbols people identify with. That's fine, but I think any attempt to try and limit British identity only to these abstract values, because those are the most inclusive, is destined to fail, is destined to alienate a lot of people who want something deeper. So what I'm talking about is a sort of two-speed or multi-speed type of identity that allows different levels of depth, but still understands that you have to have a critical mass of people who have that deeper identity to give a nation that solidity of identity, which is so important for getting people to pay tax, join the military, etc.
Sure. And on that critical mass, then, do you think that British identity is at threat, as I do, for example, due to mass immigration or due to declining birth rates, and the fact that so many central parts of sort of iconic areas of Britain are becoming less British in terms of that coherent culture, that critical mass you're speaking about? Do you fear for the future of British identity then?
Yeah, I think it is a loss. I think there is no way of talking about this without talking about a kind of loss. Yeah. Now, because as you get large-scale ethnic transformation, that increases diversity. It reduces it limits Britain's particularity in the world. Now, that's, of course, not the only value. We have to balance things off, but the only real way to reduce those high levels of diversity is through deep-seated melting and identity change, which takes typically 2 to 4 generations. And so, unfortunately, there's no way other than a pause or a drastic reduction in the rate of immigration and ethnic change in order to build up that ethnic core once again, which, as you say, I mean, already the age structure of the population, even without immigration, is going to lead to continued ethnic and religious change. So I think we really do need to take this a lot more seriously. And yes, ethnic and religious composition matters. It's not to say you have to be white to be British. These things are compatible views. But yes, we have to look at what's going on in aggregate compositional terms.
Eric Kaufman, thank you very much for sharing your views with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. There are a few more people coming on your side to say that I am, in fact, British. I'm very grateful for your support. I was getting a bit, I wouldn't say distressed, but I was rather upset, actually, when people saying that I wasn't British. But thank you, Alan Evans, saying you're British for me, Charlie. I'll take that. Thanks a million.
I do think this idea that tolerance is a core component of Britishness is ridiculous. We haven't been particularly tolerant of our enemies in the past, and for good reason. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, tolerance is a value shared by many other countries around the world. There's nothing specific.
Tolerance is what you do with your family. It shouldn't be an attitude of a nation. Anyway, my view. Well, moving on now. The British boxing star Anthony Joshua is in a stable condition following a serious car crash in Nigeria that claimed the lives of 2 of his close friends.
Well, joining us now from Nigeria is a senior global reporter at The Mail, Nick Pease. Nick, thank you very much for your time this morning. You're in Nigeria now. What's going on the ground?
Well, I can tell you that overnight the Deputy High Commissioner for the UK, Mr. Simon Field, visited Anthony Joshua in hospital. He's in Lagos, we understand, at a private medical facility there. And we understand that he's in a stable condition and he is recovering. But obviously you have to wonder about the psychological condition he's been left in after this quite horrific accident. As you may have seen from the pictures, the car was completely mangled after hitting a stationary truck by the side of the motorway just outside Lagos. He was travelling to a town called Sagamu, which is where he has grandparents, and he was visiting them. And quite literally, he cheated death. I know it's a cliche we often use in journalism, but he did. He was sat behind the driver, who also survived, but his two best friends, his two trainers who were along, one was alongside him and one was in the passenger seat, were both tragically killed, and they were named overnight as Sina Gami and Latif Adole, both men British. And Sina actually owns a gym in the Harrow area of northwest London, and if you look at the Instagram page today, they're saying that they are closed as a mark of respect for his passing.
And do we understand what led up to the accident? Do we have a possible cause?
Yeah, so yesterday when I spoke to the governor of Ogun State, where this accident happened, they said that their hunch or the working theory was a blowout, but a bit of discrepancy now. The police are now saying that it was probably high speed that caused the accident. So that's what they're working on, and it was during an overtaking manoeuvre that the driver lost control and ploughed into this stationary truck that was by the side of the road. I mean, a few metres either way, and he might well have missed it, and this accident wouldn't have happened. The stretch of highway that he was travelling on, that Anthony Joshua was travelling on in this Lexus, I'm told that the road condition is average for Nigeria. It's not too bad, but it is a very dangerous stretch of motorway because of speeding. I saw some statistics this morning from the Nigerian authorities saying that around about 73 people were killed in the first quarter of the year on that motorway.
OK, thank you very much. Nick Pisa in Nigeria, senior global reporter at The Mail. Thank you for those updates.
Well, coming up next, the New Year's honours list is out, but are they just for services to woke? We'll have the full list.
It's disappointing what's turned out now.
Well, 1,157 people honoured by the King this New Year's. Among them, Idris Elba and Torval and Dean. I'll have all the details after your travel weather.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst there's plenty of dry and bright weather across the UK at the moment, it's a different story around southern Europe. There's some rain sweeping its way towards Madeira and towards the Canary Islands through the next couple of days. It's wet across southern parts of Spain and northern Morocco. Some thundery rain likely again as we go through later this week. And further east, also some outbreaks of rain affecting parts of Greece and towards Cyprus. And some of these could be heavy and thundery at times. More changeable weather to come as we head into the new year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So this is a lovely story because it's about a chap who bought this DB5 and he bought it for 900 quid. This is an Aston Martin DB5.
It's a lovely car.
Bought it for 900 quid. And then for 50 years, pretty much didn't do very much. He moved to the Middle East, car left was on his driveway, things happened, the local kids jumped on it and various other things, and it just decayed. He has spent pretty much the big wodge of 400 grand having it done.
Do you have a picture of this car now?
Oh, I thought as I was waffling. Well, I can hold it up. But this is how it looks now. There we go. This is how it looked then and now. I don't know which.
So he spent 400 grand on this.
400 grand. He sent it back to Aston Martin.
Oh.
To where it was made, and the reason it's worth now about $1 million is because there were only 37, I think,
39
of them made, and so it's very rare. There we go. Well done, him.
Pretty penny on that. Good for him.
Yeah. Yes, and good for him.
He hasn't made it yet.
No, he hasn't made it. It's just worth. I know. He may.
I was reading a story about a man who'd spent £1 million on a DB5, and it's now worth 500,000. But,
Right,
they
okay.
hit a peak a couple of years ago, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
But don't you want to put something on the car in order to use it, not to sell it?
Well,
I mean,
he's just...
I had a car like that. I drive it.
Of course. No, then that's what... He's not selling it. He's worked hard to... He said, we've worked hard to get it
It is a work of art.
reconditioned,
It is a work
and
of art.
and he loves it.
I wonder, does it have machine guns and things like that?
Oh, no, weirdly, it says no.
Or an ejector
no ejector seat, exactly. Or any of those other things, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. It's at 9:49 and the King's 2026 New Year's Honours List has been released.
But with gongs handed to a police chief constable who was accused of discriminating against white people and the head of the National Trust who let vegan tampons into men's toilets, yes, you heard that right, are these just services to woke? Well, joining us now is GB News national reporter Will Godley. Will, good morning. Who's stood out to you in terms of winners of these honours?
Well, I've been trawling through this list all morning. 1,157 people being honoured this New Year's. I'm afraid to say neither of you have made the cut this year, unfortunately. No services to broadcasting there, but a few people. I mean, Torvill and Dean, let's talk about them, of course. Incredible ice skaters, known for their Bolero 1984 Winter Olympics, and went on, you know, of course, to be famous not throughout Britain but throughout the world for what they managed to achieve. Well, they have been recognised by the King this New Year's for their work. You can see the Bolero dancing there. Look at that fantastic work from them. They have both had a damehood and knighthood. Sir Christopher and Dame Jane, as they will now be known, receiving that honour later this year. They said it's come at a perfect time for them as they've retired this year. They've done their final dance on the ice, and they really are very honoured and humble, they've said, speaking this morning. Also, you've got Sir Idris, Arise Sir Idris, of course, the actor known for Luther, now been knighted for his services to youth work, setting up a charity and also doing a huge amount to prevent and stop knife crime in the UK, tackling what many feel is an epidemic, especially in London. He's doing a lot of work with young people to help them learn about knife crime, the dangers of knife crime, and urging the government to ban zombie knives, which is something that he's campaigned for, and they've agreed to. Even did a documentary with Sir Keir Starmer.
He also campaigned early this year to have blunt kitchen knives, saying that knives don't need to have a point. You know, Sir Idris, it's all very good, you know, he's a great actor and all the rest of it, but some of his knife crime campaigning, I think, is... Maybe this is one for Miriam, not for Will, but I don't want to put our reporter in a tricky position.
Bread knives
mentioning it on the day he got his honour.
Well, I mean, I think this is the time to mention it. I mean, this idea that we should be trying to make knives something that you can't even point with as a solution to knife crime, I don't know.
But those fancy Japanese knives don't have a point, do they?
There we go. Well, maybe we should be all more like the Japanese. That would be the solution to our gangland crime.
Steering the conversation away from knives, one of the least controversial appointments will be the award to this D-Day veteran. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, he's one of the oldest persons to be awarded by the King. 101-year-old Mervyn Kirsch from North London. He served in the Second World War. He arrived in France 3 days after D-Day. He then went on to serve in Bergen-Belsen. And he has been recognised this New Year's honours for the British Empire Medal he's receiving for his talks on the Holocaust and talks on the war in schools. And this was him reacting to that news.
It's disappointing as what's turned out now. I know we've had 80 years or 75 years. It has been worth it, certainly. I wouldn't be talking to you if it hadn't been. Yes, it is worth it, but It's very difficult. Disappointing is the anti-Semitism that I see everywhere, hear everywhere.
Well, Mervyn Kershaw, he looks incredibly good for 101 years old, doesn't he?
I went to his birthday party earlier this year at the Union Jack Club, fizzing with energy. But I think it's really interesting to hear him say that he's disappointed with the UK today, talking about this warning he has about Britain not learning the lessons of the past. He's certainly been at the front line of those lessons being, well, in his words, not being learned. But it's obviously a great honour for him, but also I think we should be listening very closely to what he has to say.
Absolutely, yeah. He said he spoke to the Prime Minister earlier this year and urged him to spend more in defence.
There we go. Right, thank you, Will Godley. Thank you very much for your time. And plenty more coming up on Britain's Newsroom because the government facing a growing political storm on that freed Egyptian activist.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many, it's going to be a fine day. Lots of dry, sunny weather around. Just a few showers pushing into some eastern parts. Otherwise, like I said, yes, it is going to stay mostly dry. We have had a cold front pushing through overnight, and that's actually helped clear away some of the clouds. So for many, it is going to be brighter. It's going to be sunnier than it was yesterday. But with that colder air that's come in behind that cold front, temperatures are going to be slightly lower, so a little bit below average for the time of year, generally peaking low single figures in the north, mid single figures towards the south. A bit of a breeze, particularly towards the east, that's going to add to the chilly feel to things. Now, as we go through towards this evening, there could be a few spots of showery rain affecting parts of Orkney and more so Shetland. Otherwise, across the rest of Scotland, it's looking dry. There'll be some clear skies as we go into the start of the night for most places here, and similar across parts of Northern Ireland. As a result, we're quickly going to see a bit of frost developing. Meanwhile, across much of England and Wales, a bit of cloud here and there, still a few showers towards some eastern coastal parts. Most places, though, ending the day on the same dry note that we'll have had through much of the day. Overnight, with a lot of dry, calm, clear weather, we are going to see temperatures plummeting. A fairly widespread frost across most parts, perhaps towards the east-southeast of England, a bit more cloud, maybe some fog here, so less frosty, but for most places, it is going to be a chilly, frosty start to the day on New Year's Eve. Then through New Year's Eve itself, well, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, and it stays fine across southern parts through much of the day and into the evening. Further north, a slightly different story. There will be some showery rain feeding its way further southwards, and this could turn a bit wintry, some sleet or snow likely over higher ground, and more wet and at times windy weather to come as we go into New Year's Day across northern parts of Scotland.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers in Hertfordshire should be aware of congestion on the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 22 and junction 21A, with delays of 30 minutes. Normal traffic conditions are anticipated between 10 and 10:15 this morning. Heading to Scotland, travellers will find restrictions on the A83 in both directions at Loughnell Street in Loch Gilphead due to emergency roadworks. And on the trains, major engineering work by Avanti West Coast is ongoing between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton, affecting Rugby. Cross-country services face significant disruptions in the Cambridge area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus SMS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday the 30th of December. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, the government is facing a growing political storm as the Foreign Secretary has launched an urgent review into what she calls serious failures in the case of the freed Egyptian activist Al-Fattah. Now, Yvette Cooper says that neither she nor the Prime Minister were told about his historic tweets, and those comments are now being described as abhorrent. But Downing Street still insists that he is welcome in Britain.
Yes, real questions about how nobody in the civil service or government could have known about these very offensive tweets, given they were in the public domain for many, many years. Nigel Farage, meanwhile, of Reform, says that a Reform government would change the law to mean that somebody with dual citizenship could have British nationality stripped from them if they were found to have tweeted anti-British sentiment.
But what does it mean to be British? Because the number of people who believe that you have to be born in this country to be truly British has almost doubled in 2 years. So are we a nation defined by our shared values or an ethnic community united by common ancestry?
And just inches from death, the British heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua is recovering in hospital after a car crash in Nigeria claimed the lives of 2 of his close friends. We'll bring you the latest live from Nigeria.
And the New Year's honours list is out, but with awards handed to a police chief constable accused of discriminating against white people and also to the head of the National Trust who put vegan tampons in the men's toilets, are these gongs just for services to woke?
Well, there's certainly one honour we can all celebrate, and that's gone to D-Day veteran Mervyn Kirsch, who's received the British Empire Medal, but he has had strong words about the state of the country today.
It's disappointing. That's what's turned out now. I know we've had 80 years or 75 years. It has been.
So, Charlie, would you like a knighthood one day? So, Charlie, please. I think earlier this year somebody suggested you might go in the House of Lords, but I think that's overshooting it a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a baron, let's put it that way. No, I think journalists should be very wary about accepting gongs. I think it's always a bit curious, I think, when I see broadcast. I'm glad Eamon's gone now, Mr. OBE. But I think, you know, journalists, you should stay as independent as possible, and having an honour from the state always sits a bit tricky with me. Make sure that's clipped up for 20 years' time from now, if I am so lucky.
You'll never I don't believe you'd refuse it. I just don't believe it.
You think I'm too vain?
Well, I think you'd like those letters off, you know. Well, we'll see. We'd love to hear what you think. Do you think Charlie deserves an award? Send your views and your comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Our Trick Award is good enough for me. Right, let's cross over now to Aaron Armstrong with all your latest news headlines.
Hello there, very good morning to you. 3 minutes past 10. The time, our headlines. More than 1,100 people from across the UK have been recognised in the New Year's Honours List for their work in politics, sport, the arts or community service. Actor Idris Elba has been knighted for his charity work with young people and anti-knife campaigning, while Olympic champions Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean received a damehood and a knighthood respectively. The Goodness Gracious Me comedian Mira Sayal also was made a dame, as was the England coach Serena Wiegmann, given an honorary damehood, with many of her Euro 2024 winning players honoured as well, including captain Leah Williamson, who's now a CBE. And let's hear, though, from Torvill and Dean, the ice skating duo who won their gold back in 1980. They say it's humbling and an honour.
Such an amazing award to receive this honour, and we're really humbled by it. You know, we've been together for 50 years, and I think in that time we've sort of created this body of work and skated and performed and entertained over all that time. You know, and we've worked with a lot of charities as well with our skating. So just to receive this honour is, as Jane said, wonderful and humbling at the same time.
Yeah, the 1984 Olympic champions. Now, the government has launched a review into serious information failures in the case of the British-Egyptian activist Alaa Abd El-Fattah. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says she and Sir Keir Starmer were unaware of his historical tweets, which they have since described as abhorrent. The activist, who was recently released after years of imprisonment in Egypt, appeared to call for violence against Zionists and the police, although he says his words have been completely twisted. Two of Anthony Joshua's friends killed in a car crash in which the British boxer was injured have been named by his spokesperson. Sina Gami and Latif Ayodele died in Nigeria yesterday when the vehicle they were travelling in collided with a stationary truck on an expressway near Lagos. Mr. Joshua's promoter has described them as being integral members of the boxer's team. They added that Joshua has minor injuries but is in a stable condition in hospital, where he was taken for checks and treatment and remains there for observation. Boxing promoter Frank Warren says Joshua may be able to continue his career, but that will be the last thing on his mind.
You know, he's lost his very close friends. I understand, were friends from, you know, since he was a kid. And, boxing, takes a real seriously, backseat in this. It means nothing in the context of anything. The fact he's alive is a miracle, considering what happened to the other two guys. And if he does carry on boxing, that'll be decided over a period of time. But at the moment, I think they've got more serious things on their mind.
Donald Trump has warned Hamas will have hell to pay if it fails to disarm. He made the comments after hosting the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida last night. Donald Trump also said he hoped to reach phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan very quickly, although last week Israel's defense minister said its forces would never leave the territory. The US president also indicated that the reconstruction of the Palestinian territory could begin very soon, the pair discussing a number of issues in the Middle East, with the US president threatening to knock the hell out of Iran if it rearms. The Cabinet Office is facing serious questions this morning after files about former Prince Andrew, were suddenly pulled from the National Archives. The documents, which detailed discussions over who should fund his trips as a trade envoy, were available to journalists for days before being abruptly withdrawn. Officials now claim the papers were released by administrative error and were never made to be made public. Critics say it looks like a cover-up and are demanding answers about why the files vanished. Finally, President Zelensky has denied Russian allegations that his forces launched a drone attack on one of Vladimir Putin's homes. Zelensky described the claim as typical Russian lies aimed at derailing peace talks following his meeting with Donald Trump in Florida on Sunday. Both leaders said progress had been made, but thorny issues remain, including territory. Moscow's complaint came after the White House confirmed a second call in as many days between President Trump and the Russian leader. Moscow says Russia is now reviewing its position in peace negotiations as a result of the alleged drone attack. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 10:30.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, the Foreign Secretary has launched an urgent review into what she calls serious information failures in the Al-Fattah case.
Now, Yvette Cooper says that neither she nor the Prime Minister were told about those historic online posts, comments now described by the government as abhorrent.
But Downing Street says he's still welcome in Britain. And joining us now is GB News chief political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, this has been one of those stories where there has been a new development, and it's become a bit of a comedy of errors, really.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? Because on Boxing Day, this Egyptian man who'd got citizenship, British citizenship, at the end of 2021 because his mother was born here while his grandmother was studying, was feted by the Prime Minister and others. They were delighted to have him back. And then within hours, these horrendous tweets emerged. The government seem to be totally blindsided, say that they are abhorrent. Questioned by journalists yesterday, they basically say that it looks like they can't deport him. The Conservatives reform are calling for this. And the government still saying yesterday that they welcome the return of a British citizen unfairly detained abroad. Now, the United Nations said that his jailing in Egypt for allegedly spreading fake news was illegal under international law, and not just this government who said it was a key priority for them, but the previous Conservative government too, under Boris Johnson and other Conservative MPs and cabinet ministers, wanted him freed and campaigned for him to be freed. His mother went on hunger strike, and there's been all this support. But these tweets go back to 2010. And we had a guest on Good Afternoon Britain yesterday afternoon, Rab Abami from The Unheard, who'd prevented him getting a prize back in 2014 because of these comments. So these comments were widely known. So, yes, the Foreign Secretary has now launched a review and said that a complete inadequacy of due diligence arrangements and serious information failures. Well, you can say that again because it really looks like incompetence by Whitehall and by successive governments.
And Catherine, we're describing these as historic tweets, but he has actually done more on social media since the front page of the Telegraph. It says, "Zionists out to get me," claims extremist, because on his official Facebook account, Al-Fattah has liked a Facebook post which said that Zionists were behind a campaign against him. So even if he was, as he said, he claimed he was unequivocal in his apology. I think that apology perhaps was not actually particularly unequivocal. He's then, since a day later, gone on Facebook and liked this post. He's a man who clearly struggles with social media, to put it bluntly, to limit himself there. But it's not good enough to say that it's historic anymore, because it seems to be engaging in the same sort of anti-Semitism now.
Yes, and he's also been saying, these tweets were made in the heat of the moment and online fights, and I was a much younger man. Well, he's 44 now, so when he was tweeting some of these talking about women being murdered, people having their throats slit, saying that the Brits are dogs and monkeys, talking about burning down Downing Street. He was then in his late 20s, early 30s. Now, his family are basically now saying that a witch hunt is being waged against him, that these comments being taken out of context. But as you say, he's continuing to like posts that perhaps you'd think he wouldn't. And Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, today has had a quick look at his sister's social media, and she described the way that Hamas terrorists parachuted basically into the music festival on October the 7th and the kibbutz where 1,200 innocent Israelis were massacred as being imaginative. So you just have to wonder what people in government were doing that they didn't spot any of these very alarming tweets, and now it seems very much like we're stuck with them for now.
OK, Catherine Forster, thank you very much.
Well, joining us now to discuss this further is the former leader of the Conservative Party, Ian Duncan-Smith. Ian, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, thinking back to 2011 and the Arab Spring, there was a lot of excitement in the West and hope that actually some of the more authoritarian governments in that area might be being overthrown. And, of course, Alaa Abdel Fattah was part of that. What was it about him and others like him that really drew Western politicians, like yourself, to supporting him at the time?
Well, I think the reality is that there was deep distrust in the nature of the governments that were governing and still governing today. In fact, it's worth just reflecting on the reality that he was actually released by the Egyptian government, and just as he was about to leave, he was then rearrested without any particular charges. So that's what's really stirred up the original cry to let him go as per the letter. I accept that I accepted assurance from people about his background and past, that I shouldn't have done, and I've regretted that because I hadn't been involved in his case previously. But the reality, though, in all of this is what's going on in the officialdom around the government and previous governments too. We used to do huge checks of everybody's backgrounds during the Cold War. You couldn't meet, no member of government would meet somebody without them knowing chapter and verse what they've written, what they've said, what their position was. All of that carried on successfully, particularly with regards to, of course, the Soviet Union. It seems that that whole process has been stopped or collapsed. I can't make my mind up about it, because it turns out now that these briefings are haphazard. Some of the interrogation of people's past is pretty unsystematic, and the reality is there's a question mark as to whether ministers get told anything at all. If they do, and they won't make the decision, they carry that responsibility. Whether civil servants are told and don't pass it on, it's a chaotic process. If you go to the United States at any stage and meet anybody, and I travel over there a lot to see various policymakers, your background is checked fully, totally. Everything you've written, everything you've said on social media, anything you might have protested about, whatever it happens to be, or even if you've ever been convicted of taking drugs, all of this is available to those who support staff, their ministers, etc. And so the reality is we don't seem to do that at all, which is chaotic and mad. So accepting the assurance that somebody that got British citizenship had all these checks done was the mistake, I think, that I and others made, assuming straight away that it would have been clear. I'm never going to do that again, I have to tell you. But that was what I would have assumed would have happened, and I was told it happened.
Well, you were told then specifically that this man's background had been checked. I know that when you've spoken about this on X, you said you regret signing that letter. It's the closest.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the closest we've come to an apology from someone who did campaign for Al-Fattah's release. Obviously, you said that civil servants should have done this checking in the Cold War. This was done more seriously. Do you want to apologise for not checking yourself instead of relying on them?
I make no question. I haven't campaigned for Al-Fattah. I signed a letter because it was to do with his arrest and release and then rearrest. So I've already apologised. I don't have to make any more than that. I said it on Twitter. I said it time and again. I wouldn't have signed this.
I think you said, I regret it.
Yes, I do. Regret is an apology.
That's not an apology, but I'm grateful to have the apology now.
I apologised for doing it by regretting the fact that I said I would not have signed this had I known the details. So, you know, with respect to you, how many times do you confuse those two things together? I have apologised, okay? And that's enough as far as I'm concerned, because I wouldn't have done it. I didn't campaign for his release. I signed a letter supporting the release post his rearrest because he's a British citizen. I campaigned for Jimmy Lai all the time. I campaigned for Ryan Cornelius, who's been incarcerated for 17 years by the UAE. So I do a lot of this trying to get British citizens who have been wrongly arrested released. I was asked to sign this letter because that was the view, that he had been rearrested without legal process. And my point is, that's why I signed it. I regret now, had I known that, I wouldn't have done, and I've made that very clear, I think. I don't know if others have done the same, but I certainly have made that very clear.
Now, Syrian, last night, Yvette Cooper has launched an investigation into how this situation was led to occur. And thinking about what you've just said about civil service failing to flag up some of these horrific tweets, do you think that actually that's where the failures might lie? Politicians have perhaps jumped on a bandwagon, but ministers have not been properly briefed by civil servants who absolutely should have picked up what was going on behind the scenes?
Yes, I think as far as I can make out now, there is no systematic process by which people who meet ministers from abroad or at home have their backgrounds thoroughly checked. And that means reading all of their interventions online, etc., or what they've written or said, or even been covered in the newspapers. So all of that sort of thing is what you'd really have expected. And I assumed, and we all assumed, that that has been going on. It has not. It appears that it happens haphazardly. It doesn't appear that the ministers, well, they say they weren't fully briefed. Whether they were or they weren't is something that we may yet find out. But the reality is that the system behind it all is, I think, chaotic. And it says very badly about the British government that our systems are not even up to what the US does and other countries, I believe, check far more seriously than we do.
Ian Duncan-Smith, you've said that you signed this letter because he was a British citizen. Some in opposition are now saying that he should have his citizenship revoked and that he should be deported. Where do you stand on that?
Well, if all the evidence piles up that he has been saying these abominable things and continuing to say them, I actually called in my Twitter for the police to investigate him on the basis that they used to they've investigated all sorts of people for making much lesser Twitter charges, and I think a couple of people have gone to prison for it. It does seem to me reasonable the police should now investigate that very seriously, and if it turns out, as it does, it seems to be developing in front of us, that this individual has been saying stuff, not just those tweets that we've originally talked about, but other tweets too, and others around him have been continuing to support.
So only if he's found to have committed a crime would you support him being deported?
Well, I think there has to be good reason why. I support what my party is saying, that he should have his citizenship taken away from him. It seems all the evidence is pointing in that direction, and I'm very happy to. But I constantly believe in due process.
Okay.
You know, we must be certain that we know that what is behind all of this is clear, and then you can act. That we're not some other organisation or other country that jumps to things. Yes, he should have his citizenship revoked. If it turns out categorically that all of these tweets and others were his and of his origin, that would certainly be a case for his citizenship to be revoked.
Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
It says we're not a country who jump to things, but plenty of senior ministers and politicians certainly jumped to this man's aid. Anyway, it's 20 minutes past 10. Up next, fears have been raised about the safety of British Army families as 300 illegal migrant men are set to live in a neighbouring barracks.
This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
9:30.
It is indeed.
And as the new year approaches, we've got, for the very first time, our GB News charity calendar. It's on sale, and 100% of the price. I should point out, actually, the pictures were taken by you and voted for by you because we've got so many entries. So you've made this. 100% of the profits go to our 2025 charity partner, which is the London Taxi Drivers Charity for Children. And that actually is also proudly supported by Her Majesty the Queen. Really, really lovely
But look, I'm just
pictures.
going to take... There's a... Oh, hold on a sec. There we go. Look, how lovely are those pictures?
It's really nice. It's what is most important is the fact that, as we say, 100% of the money is going to charity. If you pick one up at the GB News shop online, and the chairman of the Taxi Drivers Charity for London is Anthony Moore and is here. It's great to see you.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about what the charity does.
We do several events a year. We take kids to the seaside as a group of taxis. So this year we had 80 taxis transferring around about 200 children. We went to the zoo this year, and so we've done that as an event. Everybody gives up their time. The taxi drivers just give up their time, all just so that the kids can have a good time. We've got our Christmas party, or the Mad Hatters party. That's in January, and we've got now 700 and... We've had to limit the numbers this year. We've got 720 children coming at the moment.
Wow.
But they will be entertained by singers, dancers. We've got the King's Welsh Guards turning up to give them the dimensions of the dance floor. So they're coming to do, in their full regalia, they hang around, hats on children, photographs. So, you know, we do several things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's nearly 24 minutes past 10. You're watching with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, we're joined in the studio by Dr. René Hondekamp and Nigel Nelson to go through today's top stories. And, of course, we're starting with The Guardian front page, Nigel, because 1 in 3, is the headline, believe Britishness is dependent on being born in the UK.
Yes, and a lot of people also think it depends on ancestry, ethnicity. It's a bit of a sort of sliding scale on this one to actually decide what Britishness is. It's a bit like British values. That seems to be depend on actually who you talk to. The only way you could actually define Britishness, surely, is if you are a British citizen. And if you start going back on all these other things, that there are so many people who won't be British. You just said you were born in Sweden, so therefore...
Guilty. Exposed as a foreigner on GBNews.
You're out of this one, Charlie.
I tell you what, Nigel, it's pretty
You're
tough
a diversity hire, Charlie.
Well, many are saying this. It's about time we had some white men on telly. It's a tough start to the day at work when broadcasting legend Eamon Holmes says you're not British. It's a rough business.
René, do you think that actually the reason that there are many answers to this is because it is complicated, and it's a bit like a family. If you know, who is your family? You've got your immediate family, you've got your in-laws who aren't blood relatives, but they're still your family. You've got your kind of great aunts and uncles. It's just complicated.
Well, I think that's a really interesting comparison, actually, because I think your family is the people that you love, whoever they are. My best friend is certainly, you know, I love her. She's part of my family, and I think that's the problem that we have. And the problem that we've got defining this is because, whether you like it or not, we have seen such massive change over the last two decades, really, 1 to 2 decades, with mass migration at a speed that we're not coping with, that people are starting to feel uneasy. And that's why we're seeing this. We wouldn't be seeing this otherwise. I think British values are culture, and they're about shared culture and what we see as the rules of society. And people are feeling that the rules of society are breaking down because of this mass migration with people who don't understand it and are breaking the rules and seem to be getting favourable treatment above people who are suffering. And that's why these people are changing their answers in this piece by The Guardian, although it is also a Nigel Farage hit piece, obviously. So we have to view all of the things contributing to it. But I think you're right. It's family and it's who we love. And people are starting to feel quite insular because they're scared.
We end up creating two classes of people, that you end up with kind of, for some reason, that people who are not born here but live here and contribute to Britain are somehow lesser people. I mean, I think racism, for instance, is much less nowadays than it used to be.
Totally.
So, you know, when I was at school, the pub round the corner had a sign in the window: no blacks, no Irish, no dogs.
You were at school a long time ago, Nigel.
It was a long time ago. You're absolutely right. And also, we've lost those jokes that sort of begin an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Jew. They've disappeared. That's
a bit sad.
Which is good. Well, no, it's not actually. I think it's quite good that people don't tell those jokes. So racism has gone down, but now we're talking about lesser people. If you're not fully British, whatever that means, you're somehow a lesser person to somebody who is.
But is that not, Nigel? Because there are two categories in the way that we judge people. There's the legal category, we're all equal under the law. All British passport holders are equal under the law. But, you know, I know my children are equal to other people's children, but I love my children a hell of a lot more than I love anybody else's. That's just human nature.
Yes, I know, but if society is constructed with an attitude around it that other people are lesser than you are, do you not think that is actually dangerous?
I think it's what every single society and country does that. I think
and also you've just used the words, Nigel, constructed, and this is the problem, because society is constructed on a joint effort where people agree the rules, stick to them and work together towards some sort of cultural cohesion. When you have what we have seen, this mass immigration, we are having society constructed for us in a way that many people are not enjoying, do not feel that they're benefiting from. And that is what is creating the division, that we are being socially engineered to accept something that isn't working under the rules-based system that we have grown up to understand.
But it's the attitude I'm talking about, that now you have these lesser people who live here.
You've used those words, I haven't.
I'm not even absolving the government of that. I mean, the government measures now are creating people who have fewer rights despite equal contributions to Britain. So Labour are not absolved from this either, but it's an attitude that's growing.
But Nigel, we are tremendously generous in how people become British, right? In other countries, it takes far longer to acquire a passport or citizenship. Becoming British is relatively easy when you think of other sort of world powers and how that process takes place. Renee's got a point, hasn't she, when she says that because of mass immigration, these are conversations that we didn't need to have previously with our, very low levels of immigration, ancient institutions. There was no sense of ambiguity. Everyone knew what they were. Now it's changed so much. Having to be a bit more forthright, perhaps, having to be a bit stricter, might generate a clearer sense of our identity.
But I think it's the migration that's created the attitude, rather than migration has always existed and has always
very, very low levels. Well,
lower. They've been lower levels. I mean, when it comes to legal migration,
I'm talking over 1,000 years, Nigel. I mean, the sense of Britishness was pretty clear before, after the Second World War, when suddenly we've expanded it into these woolly terms about tolerance.
But you mentioned after the Second World War, I mean, the Windrush generation who came here. So we've had immigration and some problems attached to it. What appears to be now is this just change in attitude is what I'm talking about.
Fundamental difference with the Windrush. My mother-in-law was a Windrush woman who came here and worked in our health service. Fundamental difference was Christian values. You can't deny it. We had a whole host of people coming in at much lower levels who were based around a Christian society. So amalgamation was much easier. Slotting into society was much easier than a completely different cultural norm which is coming now. And that is one of the problems.
Shall we move on to a different but related story? The Daily Mail online is reporting that fears have been raised over the safety of British Army families as 300 illegal migrant men are set to live at a neighbouring barracks. And Nigel, I think the particular fear here is that actually the men are away with the army, leaving women and children alone, and there are concerns about the safety nearby to this migrant centre. What's your view on this?
Sure, yeah, and everybody who's got a camp which has been designated for migrants near them will be objecting. In the same way everyone objected if they had a hotel on their doorstep that contained migrants. We go back to the problem, where do you put these people?
No. The problem's very easy to solve. You do locked camps where these people can't roam around. Sorted. No one's going to worry about that, Nigel. Until they're processed, they are fed, watered, they're safe, they're not running from a war.
But they haven't done anything wrong.
They have. They've broken into the country. The problem, Nigel, is that when people
that is not illegal.
Yes, it is. It's an illegal crossing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not. It's just simply not.
When people break into the country, we call them illegal crossings for good reason here. But when people hear about army camps, they really do have the sense that there's a wire, there's a gate, and they're kept in them. People don't actually realise in a lot of these communities facing these sudden arrivals, hundreds of arrivals, is that they're free to just roam around. They're given taxis into the town. That is the sense of fear and risk. Surely Dr. Renee's got a point there.
Well,
with secure accommodation, that would change it, wouldn't it?
I think people.
It might stop people crossing.
It is understandable that people are really upset about having a camp next door to them full of young men who they don't know anything about. When it comes down to them roaming around, I go back to the fact that these people are asylum claimants, and until that asylum claim is rejected, they have every right then to walk around.
Why do they have every right? Because you say they have every every right.
No,
Why
I don't
do
say
they?
it.
They have every right, because the ECHR won't let us detain people if there isn't an imminent chance of deportation.
No,
that's a legal argument.
British law says it.
Right,
British law says it, having adopted the Refugee Convention into British law.
Right.
1952.
But the moment that they are rejected, which is rare, let's face it, but the few that are rejected, they'll just disappear off into the ether, which is what they do.
But once they're rejected, they can be, as Charlie is talking about, they can be arrested, put in a detention camp,
But they're not, are they,
and then
Nigel?
removed.
But they're not, are they?
Perhaps the reason that people are frightened of living next door to these young men gives a clue about one of the things that we call British, which is how we treat women.
Absolutely. Right, it's 33 minutes past 10. Thank you, Nigel and Renee. We'll be back to you in the next hour, but let's cross over now to Aaron Armstrong for a 60-second news update.
Thanks, Charlie. Good morning to you. Our headlines: the King's New Year's Honours list has been released, recognising more than 1,000 people for dedication and service to the community. Actor Idris Elba, Mira Sayal, along with the ice dancers Torvlin Dean and the England coach Serena Wiegmann amongst those to be knighted or given damehoods for their outstanding contributions. The government's launched a review into serious information failures in the case of the British-Egyptian activist Alaa Abd El-Fattah. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says she and Sir Keir Starmer were unaware of his historical tweets, which they've since described as abhorrent. Anthony Joshua's team have confirmed 2 of his close friends died in yesterday's car crash in Nigeria. Kevin Lateef Ayodele on the left and Sina Gami on the right have been described as integral members of the boxers' team. The former heavyweight world champion remains in hospital for observation. Donald Trump says he hopes to reach phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan very quickly and has warned Hamas would have hell to pay if it does not disarm. It follows talks with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida. And the Cabinet Office has been accused of covering up for the royal family after the release of documents related to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor were withdrawn from the National Archives shortly after being published. And those are your headlines. I'll have more for you at 11 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Coming up next, would banning ritual slaughter shame Britain? Well, that's what our next guest thinks.
And this is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Stay tuned for a interesting debate about halal and kosher slaughter.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many, it's going to be a fine day. Lots of dry, sunny weather around. Just a few showers pushing into some eastern parts. Otherwise, like I said, yes, it is going to stay mostly dry. We have had a cold front pushing through overnight, and that's actually helped clear away some of the clouds. So for many, it is going to be brighter. It's going to be sunnier than it was yesterday. But with that colder air that's come in behind that cold front, temperatures are going to be slightly lower, so a little bit below average for the time of year, generally peaking low single figures in the north, mid single figures towards the south. A bit of a breeze, particularly towards the east, that's going to add to the chilly feel to things. Now, as we go through towards this evening, there could be a few spots of showery rain affecting parts of Orkney and more so Shetland. Otherwise, across the rest of Scotland, it's looking dry. There'll be some clear skies as we go into the start of the night for most places here, and similar across parts of Northern Ireland. As a result, we're quickly going to see a bit of frost developing. Meanwhile, across much of England and Wales, a bit of cloud here and there, still a few showers towards some eastern coastal parts. Most places, though, ending the day on the same dry note that we'll have had through much of the day. Overnight, with a lot of dry, calm, clear weather, we are going to see temperatures plummeting. A fairly widespread frost across most parts, perhaps towards the east-southeast of England, a bit more cloud, maybe some fog here, so less frosty, but for most places, it is going to be a chilly, frosty start to the day on New Year's Eve. Then through New Year's Eve itself, well, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, and it stays fine across southern parts through much of the day and into the evening. Further north, a slightly different story. There will be some showery rain feeding its way further southwards, and this could turn a bit wintry, some sleet or snow likely over higher ground, and more wet and at times windy weather to come as we go into New Year's Day across northern parts of Scotland.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A83 is restricted at Locknell Street, Loch Gilphead due to emergency roadworks. In Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 22 and 21A has lane closures due to a vehicle fire. Delays of 30 minutes are expected to improve between 11 and 11:15 this morning. In Surrey, the M23 southbound between junctions 8 and 9 has one lane closed for a tyre change. Normal conditions are anticipated between 10:30 and 10:45 this morning. On the trains, Avanti West Coast has major engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton, and Cross Country is undergoing major work around Cambridge. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, some breaking news just coming into us now from counter-terror police. A spokesperson there has said that they have received a number of public referrals in recent days relating to various historical social media posts. This is referring to the Al-Fattah case. The spokesperson added, should any potential offences be identified, then, depending on the nature of the offences, the CTIRU will either refer the matter to the relevant investigation team within counter-terror policing or to the relevant local police force to consider for further investigation.
Interesting. It's what Ian Duncan-Smith was calling for a few minutes ago. Well, moving on, the debate around banning halal and kosher slaughter is resurfacing in Britain. Well, Nigel Farage has opposed it, saying it's needlessly divisive to minority communities. But others, including the ex-Reform MP, Rupert Lowe, are vocal advocates.
Well, one man who thinks that banning ritual slaughter would shame our country is the associate comment editor at the Daily Telegraph, Michael Mosbacher, who joins us in the studio. Now, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Now,
thank you.
Obviously, there is a lot of hypocrisy in Britain surrounding animal welfare, with the country of the £5 a month donation to the Battersea Dogs Home, but then also the £3 chicken, which is reared in a cage on a battery farm. But surely halal slaughter, kosher slaughter, goes way too far for our standards.
You're right. I mean, the animal welfare strategy was announced by Labour just before Christmas, and there are all sorts of weird things in there. And there's no mention of ritual slaughter for non-stunned slaughter for fairly obvious political reasons. So it discusses whether fish should be stunned, but doesn't discuss whether livestock should be stunned. But I'd say there's a big problem with banning non-stunned slaughter is what we're really talking about. Because people bandy around the word halal and then kosher slaughter, but the case is that most 80% of chickens and 70% of halal lamb is actually stunned. So what people are really objecting to isn't halal slaughter in theory, but it should be non-stunned slaughter. On the other hand, kosher slaughter, shaket, is entirely non-stun. I mean, if it's stunned, that meat just isn't kosher. It affects, and what it would mean if that was banned in the UK, is that observant Jews would be one of two things could happen. Either the government can continue to allow imports of kosher meat. That's what's happened in Belgium, where there's been a ban on non-stun slaughter. And then it's just performative, isn't it? It doesn't actually achieve anything. If you can still import meat to the UK, it just outsources the slaughter. The other thing is, if there was a ban on imports, it basically means that the government would dictate to observant Jews, you have to go vegetarian or have to go pescatarian. And particularly Haredi, Orthodox Jewish culture, is a very sort of meat-based cuisine, food, etc. And I think it's just not acceptable for the government to dictate what people can and cannot eat.
Well, I suppose it begs the question, should the law be made based on what a particular culture or government thinks is right or wrong, or should it be made regarding the outcomes? So people who will defend allowing non-stun slaughter will say, well, we believe in freedom of religion, but that's not actually true. I mean, we don't allow polygamy, for example. We don't allow child marriage, which are the practices of some cultures. Why should we allow something that in other situations might be going against British values?
Well, obviously, the reality of non-stun slaughter is widely debated, and those groups certifying it would say it wasn't needlessly cruel. And the whole process of slaughter, I suspect most people would give up eating meat if they went into any sort of slaughterhouse. It's hardly an edifying process. But, I mean, this is something which has existed here for ages. And let's look at the pedigree. There's something very tasteless about proposing the ban on non-stun slaughter, because the past history shows it's been used again and again to stigmatise groups. The most extreme example is obviously Nazi Germany. Hitler became Chancellor on the 30th of January. One of the first anti-Jewish measures were ratcheted up and up over time, was the ban on kosher slaughter. Ritual slaughter was banned from the 1st of May. It creates an atmosphere. Already the British Jewish community, particularly religious Jews, feel embattled over here. I mean, the surveys show anti-Semitism's on the rise. More and more, and the survey just before Christmas showed more and more British Jews have considered emigrating. If you're suddenly told, no, you can't, one of the core parts of your culture, of how you live your life, of how you define yourself, i.e. keeping a kosher kitchen, is prohibited, what did that say?
You say it's happened here for ages. It may have, I'm not sure how long ages is, but it's still a minority experience, right? And I think, you know, when people come to Britain, they often bring their culture with them, but we do expect people to assimilate, of course, to the dominant culture. I do think still that ritual slaughter is perhaps a step too far for most Britons. I mean, one of our commentators here, Michael, is saying that you're defending the indefensible.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, it's clearly been here for a long time, since there's been a Jewish community in Britain, returning since Oliver Cromwell, and obviously observant, a much higher proportion of that community would have been observant in the past than now. But the point is, I don't think it's particularly welcome. If you're just banding about, for example, there's a big concern, which is true, that a lot of lamb which you might buy in a supermarket is unlabelled, so it won't tell you whether it's halal or not halal. But my strong suspicion is that the vast majority of halal lamb sold in supermarkets is actually stunned, right? Because since 70% of halal lamb which is slaughtered is stunned, 80% of halal chicken is stunned. My suspicion is that most of that will be stunned. But obviously there is an issue. I think a valid point can be made that meat should clearly be labelled as to whether it's been ritual non-stunned or stunned. I think that's entirely legitimate. Okay.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. Michael Osbacher there. I think, Charlie, the reality is that the Labour government are not going to ban this because the impact on voters from Muslim communities.
Yeah, and they're already under the cosh, aren't they? Oh, pardon the pun. When it comes to British Jews as well, that would be a difficult one indeed.
I think they'll just conveniently ignore it, but meanwhile, you're not allowed to boil a lobster.
Right, 11:15, and coming up next, we'll be reflecting on the turbulent year that 2025 has been for the royal family. But first, let's get your latest European destination weather forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst there's plenty of dry and bright weather across the UK at the moment, it's a different story around southern Europe. There's some rain sweeping its way towards Madeira and towards the Canary Islands through the next couple of days. It's wet across southern parts of Spain and northern Morocco. Some thundery rain likely again as we go through later this week. And further east, also some outbreaks of rain affecting parts of Greece and towards Cyprus. And some of these could be heavy and thundery at times. More changeable weather to come as we head into the new year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the cars.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. You've been getting in touch on Your Say, gbnews.com/Your Say. We're just speaking about the potential banning of halal and kosher slaughter with Telegraph journalist Michael Mosbacher. A lot of you making the point that actually the stunning is often very low power and the animal retains consciousness. Gary Lloyd-Cox said, making that point. And indeed, it's backed up, I should say, by PETA, the animal rights charity, saying that millions of animals every year are improperly stunned. So an important part of the debate to include there.
Absolutely. Well, moving on now. The royal family has its ups and downs in 2025, and GB News is there every step of the way. Our royal correspondent...
2025, a year of resilience, reckoning and reconciliation for the House of Windsor. The year began under the shadow of health concerns. The King, diagnosed with cancer in early 2024, shared an uplifting message in December 2025. His treatment schedule would be reduced in the new year, moving into a precautionary phase. Early detection and effective care were praised as he delivered a poignant message for Stand Up to Cancer.
This milestone is both a personal blessing and a testimony to the remarkable advances that have been made in cancer care in recent years.
Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales announced her remission in January after completing chemotherapy in September 24. Now she's reclaimed her public role, confidently hosting world leaders, making surprise visits, and delivering speeches to promote the importance of early childhood development.
Every child deserves respect and safety, and everyone who cares deserves recognition and appreciation.
Prince William took to the global stage in November, embarking on a 5-day visit to Brazil to focus on finding solutions to repair the planet. He hosted his Earthshot Prize in Rio de Janeiro, met indigenous leaders in the Amazon, and posed for selfies with crowds. William also recreated an image of the iconic Christ the Redeemer, posing like his mother did 30 years ago. He also represented the United Kingdom at the COP Climate Conference alongside the Prime Minister. Prince Harry reunited with his father in September, their first face-to-face meeting in 19 months. The 53-minute meeting at Clarence House and a leaked meeting with aides suggest reconciliation is back on the table. But security remains a challenge. Harry's won a government review of his UK security arrangements amid ongoing battles for protection during visits.
The King has stripped Prince Andrew of all his royal titles and kicked him out of Royal Lodge.
The year brought further downfall for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. This due to renewed scrutiny over Jeffrey Epstein ties and the revelation he'd been paying peppercorn rents for the mansion. Andrew's expected to move to a property on the private Sandringham estate, funded by his brother in the new year. Royal soft power dominated September, flattering President Trump during an unprecedented second state visit. The event, held at both Windsor Castle and Chequers, featured carriage processions, a banquet, and meetings with the Prime Minister. Protests in London and Windsor didn't seem to faze the president. The 80th anniversary of VE Day and VJ Day were also commemorated, sparking this viral moment between royal brothers, where Louis teased his sibling George. The royal diary is already filling up for 2026, with several international visits planned. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Thank you, Cameron, for that.
Well, we'll return now to the breaking news after the break that counter-terrorism police are now assessing Alaa Abd El-Fattah's historical tweets from 2010 when he was, he says, an angry young man.
Yes, don't go anywhere. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Quite a chilly feel out there through today, despite the fact that there's more sunshine on offer compared to yesterday. Just a few showers here and there, but generally the main story being this high area of high pressure that's stretching from the northwest of us down across much of the UK, which is why it's generally fine. A lot of dry, sunny weather around. Like I say, just a few showers across some eastern parts, maybe some southern coastal areas seeing a couple of showers as well. Otherwise, lots of dry weather and lots of sunshine breaking through. But as I mentioned, it is a chilly feel out there. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year, and with a bit of a breeze towards some eastern and also some southeastern parts, well, that's going to make it feel even chillier as well. Then, as we go into this evening, well, lots of fine, calm weather for many places across much of Scotland. Lots of clear skies, albeit for Orkney and Shetland. A bit blustery here and some showery rain. Across Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies as well. And as a result, we're quite quickly going to see a bit of frost developing as we go through the start of the night. Slightly less chilly to start the night across much of England and Wales, but even here, apart from a few showers, lots of dry, clear weather. And then as we go overnight, with the generally calm, clear weather for most places, the exception being towards the northeast, where it will still be quite blustery. For most places, yes, we have that calm, clear weather, so temperatures taking a bit of a drop, and some fog, some freezing fog patches likely to develop, particularly across some southern, southeastern parts. Temperatures widely dropping close to, if not below freezing, like similar nights we could get to -7, -8 Celsius in some places. So a cold, frosty start for some of us on New Year's Eve, a foggy start in some places as well. A lot of that fog across the south, that will quite quickly clear away. And then it's generally a fine day for most and staying fine through the evening and overnight in the south, but further north turning increasingly windy with some wet and wintry weather pushing in.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 30th of December, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, in some breaking news, counter-terrorism police are now assessing Al-Fattah's historical tweets after he admitted that he hated white people and described the killing of Zionists as heroic. But Downing Street still says he's welcome in Britain.
Yes, the more of these quite shocking tweets emerge, the more misguided the Prime Minister and other politicians saying that they were delighted that he is now in Britain appear. I'll bring you more details shortly.
And what does it mean to be British? The number of people who believe that you have to be born in this country to be truly British has almost doubled in 2 years. So, are we a nation defined by our shared values? Or is it about ethnic community united by common ancestry?
And just inches from death, British heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua is recovering in hospital after a car crash in Nigeria claimed the lives of 2 of his closest friends.
And the New Year's honours list is now out, but with awards handed to a police chief constable who's been accused of discriminating against white people, and also to the head of the National Trust who put vegan tampons in the men's toilets. Yes, that really did happen. Are these gongs just for services to woke?
But one very well-deserved honour has gone to the D-Day veteran Mervyn Kirsch, who has received a British Empire Medal. But he had strong words about the state of the country today.
It's disappointing. That's what's turned out now. I know we've had 80 years or 75 years. It has been worth it, certainly.
Lots of people always talk about the state that Britain is in, but I think we really should stop and listen when D-Day veterans and Second World War heroes are making those sorts of comments. And unfortunately, Miriam, it does happen all too often when we hear those very concerning remarks from our veterans, from those who gave everything to secure the freedoms we have now. They think it was worth it, a lot of them, and some say it wasn't, which is really upsetting. But those who think it was worth it do say often that the country is in a very dire state. And, you know, I think we should listen to those voices much more closely than we currently do.
And he played a very important role, I believe, in liberating some of the concentration camps in Nazi Germany after the war, so saw firsthand the impact of the Holocaust. And yet To go through all those generations and see, yet again, Jews being targeted, even in this country, must be horrific for people who have survived that long.
Yeah, to go from that to then suddenly hearing globalise the Intifada on your streets must be appalling. And you can understand why Mervyn Kirsch, BEM, now has those concerns. But very many congratulations to him today, of course. Right, well, we'd love to know what you think. Of course, you know the drill by now. gbnews.com/your say. What we're going to do next?
We're getting to have the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 11. Our headlines. British counter-terrorism police are assessing historical social media posts by the British Egyptian activist Alaa Abd El-Fattah following a number of public referrals. The activist, who arrived in the UK on Boxing Day after years of detention in Egypt, appeared to call for violence against Zionists and the police. He says his words have been completely twisted. The government's launched a review into serious information failures in his case. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says she, Sir Keir Starmer and the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy were all unaware of the historical tweets, which they've since described as abhorrent. More than 1,100 people across the UK have been recognised in the New Year's Honours List for their work in politics, sport, the arts or community service. The actor Idris Elba, best known for his roles in The Wire and Luther, has been knighted for his charity work with young people and his anti-knife campaigning. Goodness gracious me, comedian Mira Sayal has been made a dame. England coach Serena Wiegman's been given an honorary damehood, with members of her Euro 2024 winning team and England's World Cup winning rugby team also recognised. And the 1984 Olympic figure skating champions Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean were awarded a damehood and a knighthood respectively, describing it as humbling and an honour.
Such an amazing award to receive this honour, and we're really humbled by it. You know, we've been together for 50 years, and I think in that time we've sort of created this body of work and skated and performed and entertained over all that time. You know, and we've worked with a lot of charities as well with our skating. So just to receive this honour is, as Jane said, wonderful and humbling at the same time.
Two of Anthony Joshua's friends killed in a car crash in which the British boxer was injured have been named by his spokesperson. Kevin Lateef Ayodele on the left and Sina Gami died in Nigeria yesterday when the vehicle they were travelling in collided with a stationary truck on an expressway near Lagos. Mr Joshua's promoter has described them as integral members of the boxer's team. The spokesperson added that the boxer himself has minor injuries and remains in a stable condition in hospital, where he is there under observation for checks and treatment. Boxing promoter Frank Warren says Joshua may be able to continue his career, but that will be the last thing on his mind.
You know, he's lost his very close friends. I understand, were friends from, you know, since he was a kid. And, boxing, takes a real seriously, backseat in this. It means nothing in the context of anything. The fact he's alive is a miracle considering what happened to the other two guys. And if he does carry on boxing, that'll be decided over a period of time. But at the moment, I think they've got more serious things on their mind.
Donald Trump says he hopes to reach phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan very quickly and has warned Hamas it will have hell to pay if it doesn't disarm soon. Mr Trump has been hosting the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida for talks on Gaza and Iran. And the US President said the reconstruction of the Palestinian territory will begin soon and threatened to knock the hell out of Iran if it rearms.
Iran has been greatly reduced in power, prestige. I don't want to use the word humiliation because, they're trying to build up again. But we can't let them build up because if they build up, there can't be peace.
The Cabinet Office is facing serious questions this morning after files about former Prince Andrew were suddenly pulled from the National Archives. The documents, which detailed discussions over who should fund his trips as a trade envoy, were available to journalists for days before being abruptly withdrawn. Officials now claim the papers were released by administrative error, but were never meant to be made public. Critics say it looks like a royal cover-up, and they're demanding answers about why the files vanished. And President Zelensky's denied Russian allegations that his forces launched a drone attack on one of Vladimir Putin's homes. Zelensky described the claim as typical Russian lies aimed at derailing peace talks following his meeting with Donald Trump on Sunday. Both leaders said progress has been made, but thorny issues, including territory, remain. And Moscow's complaint came after the White House confirmed a second call in as many days took place between President Trump and the Russian leader. Russia says it will, though, review its position in peace negotiations now as a result of the alleged drone attack. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 11:30.
Thanks, Aaron, and welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, we'll return to that breaking news that's come in the last hour. Counter-terror police have said they're assessing Alaa Abdel-Fattah's tweets. A counter-terrorism policing spokesperson said
We've received a number of public referrals in recent days relating to various historical social media posts. Should any potential offences be identified, then depending on the nature of the offences, the CTIRU will either make the matter to the relevant investigation team within counter-terror policing or to the relevant local police force to consider for further investigation.
Well, this comes as the Foreign Secretary has launched an urgent review into what she calls serious information failures in the Alaa Abdel-Fattah case. Yvette Cooper says neither she nor the Prime Minister were told about historic online posts, comments described by the government now as abhorrent.
Well, Downing Street said he's still welcome in Britain, and we're joined now by our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, firstly, the CTIRU, in that statement, who are they? What are they doing?
Yeah, so this is the Counter-Terror Internet Referral Unit, and they exist to investigate potential terror or extremist content online. So, as we've just heard, members of the public, there's been so much publicity, hasn't there, over the last few days about Al-Fattah's very aggressive and violent and
not racist, I mean anti-white people, anti-Jews,
horrendous tweets. So I actually think that this is no surprise at all. The police are now assessing these tweets to see if they feel that it meets a threshold for further investigation. But just I was just looking back over some of them. I'm just going to read you out a few direct ones. I want a drone of my own, promised to only use it to shoot Zionist weddings. That was in 2011, talking about British dogs and monkeys. Another one, police are not human. They don't have rights. We should just kill them all. Also, another one talks about random shooting of white males. And another one, I consider killing any colonialists, specifically Zionists, heroic. We need to kill more of them. So I don't think it's any surprise that the police are assessing these tweets. Let's see what happens next. But increasingly, what a misjudgment for the Prime Minister and other senior figures in government to use the word delighted about the fact that this Egyptian and British national, because his mother was born here, being welcomed into Britain, and the fact that none of them seem to have known anything about these tweets, despite the fact that journalists and other people uncovered them so easily on social media. Now, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, has launched a Foreign Office investigation talking about a complete inadequacy of due diligence. It really feels like due diligence was not done at all, and a massive failure of sort of basic competence.
I suppose one of the problems they might have here, Catherine, the police, as they assess these tweets, is that they were a long time ago. There might be a time limit on this investigation. And also, did he post them in Egypt? To what extent, could the police launch an investigation on things not, done on British soil? Yes,
I think that's difficult because, as far as we know, he is Egyptian. He has been living in Egypt and obviously in jail in Egypt. We don't actually know when or if he's ever been to Britain until he arrived here. So that is an unknown at the moment. But of course, because we have this global world now, when you post something on social media, it doesn't matter in some senses where you post it. The effect can be the same. But of course, legally, that might be a different matter.
Now, Catherine, it's the current government that's under fire for welcoming him to Britain and not having investigated these tweets properly. But actually, the problem started some time ago when politicians of both sides of politics decided to support this man unconditionally because of the role he was supposedly playing in the Arab Spring, standing up against authoritarian governments. Looking back now, do you think this was more about signalling which side people were on rather than particularly knowing anything about this man?
Well, it does look like that because, I mean, Boris Johnson's government, Rishi Sunak's government, lots of Conservative figures involved supporting him, so many actors and celebrities that appear not to have dug beneath the surface. But look, the information was out there because Sohrab Ahmari, that is the US editor of Unheard, wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal back in 2014 detailing some of these very violent social media posts. And that piece stopped this man being awarded a prize in 2014. So this information has been in the public domain for a long time.
It's curious, isn't it? I mean, you've heard Miriam there talking about the number of Conservatives involved in this now. Some of them will go to Reform as well. So Reform are now calling for him to be deported, to have his citizenship revoked. One of the problems they've got, I mean, we tried to question Richard Tice on this a couple of days ago, is that, you know, would that mean you'll now scrap matrilineal citizenship? Would you change the process by how this is acquired? They're saying they want to do something, but they're not actually giving much detail on how that could be achieved.
Yes, I mean, Reform are saying that if they get into government, they will change the law so that if you've got dual nationality and you are actively inciting hatred or violence against British people or values, you can be deported. But the knock-on effect of that, we don't know, is potentially very complicated. Another thing is that because he got this citizenship at the end of 2021, because his mother was born here when his grandmother was studying, there wasn't the normal sort of character check that should have been done. And in fact, I believe there was some case of a foreign murderer, and it was because of the ECHR that those checks were abandoned. But it just looks like a profound failure because a government's first duty is the safety of its own citizens. And at a time where we've had these horrendous attacks on the Jewish community, Bondi Beach and in Manchester, a man making these sorts of comments about the Jewish community, white people in general, and British people, it's obviously very upsetting and very frightening, I think, for a lot of people in the Jewish community feeling very, very let down. I mean, the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has talked about this, and she said that she's aware that their tweets saying that they were delighted, you know, before they realised the tweets that he's been sending years ago, added to this distress felt by Jewish communities in the UK, and that she regrets that. But it's a real pity that they didn't do their homework before it got to this point.
Indeed. Catherine Forster, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Charlie, when you think back to 2011 and that Arab Spring, there was a lot of hope in the West that some of these authoritarian governments would be overthrown, but I think enormous naivety that they'd be replaced with some sort of Western liberal democracy.
Yeah, and when we're focusing on those sorts of people, what they think about us, it is curious. I know, you know, Catherine's pointing to what the ministers are saying, but it has concerned me a touch that all of his comments have been framed in terms of what he said about Jewish people. I know we've got this rising concern about anti-Semitism, of course, but the majority here are, you know, white Brits, and he says he hates white people. I think we should focus on that as well, too,
and hates
frankly.
the police, which is kind of an indicator he might not be willing to follow the law.
Yes, indeed. Right, it's 11:16, and we're now discussing about Sir Keir Starmer being told that trans guidance for civil servants has defied the Supreme Court ruling and must be withdrawn immediately. That's what civil servants are saying.
Well, Cabinet Office guidelines currently say that individuals should be able to choose appropriate single-sex toilets for their gender.
Well, we're joined now by Maya Forstater, the CEO of Sex Matters, who's written to the Prime Minister demanding that he take action and retract the guidance. Maya, what does that letter include?
Well, the law is the law, and the letter sets out what the law is. That the Supreme Court on April the 16th made clear that sex means biology, it means male or female. And this piece of guidance, which has been around since 2019 and which the government says they're reviewing, should be withdrawn straight away because it's unlawful. What it tells civil servants across the government is that it's transphobia not to accept somebody's gender identity, and that it's misgendering to use words that are clear about their sex. And that means it's impossible to talk about someone's sex and to apply clear sex-based rules in things like toilets, changing rooms, showers, but also when talking about government policy. And this, they've done nothing to implement the Supreme Court's judgment.
Now, Maya, I've been looking for this guidance this morning. I must admit I clicked on a number of links that were no longer live, but I think I found what might be this official document. And it says that it is assumed that the individual knows which facilities are the best match for their gender identity and expression. Some transgender, non-binary and intersex individuals may feel most comfortable using gender-neutral facilities where present, but this is a matter of personal choice. It seems to be completely focused on the individual rather than the wider concerns of all female employees or all male employees.
Exactly. It's called the trans and intersex transition at work policy. And so it's not an easy policy to find, even if you're inside the civil service looking around on the intranet. You know, it's not called the toilets policy. It doesn't say when you go to the women's toilet, by the way, you're going to, you could bump into a male colleague and you shouldn't say anything. It's hidden away in this trans policy, but like you say, it affects everybody. It affects every other employee that wants to have privacy and dignity in changing rooms, in showers, in toilets, at work.
Now, not so long ago, Maya, 15 years, this was not an issue on most people's minds. Most people wouldn't be aware of trans individuals at work, let's say. And yet now it's become such a hot topic that even if we do return to what I would view as a common sense position, men in the men's toilets, women in the women's toilets, there will be some difficult cases of men dressed as women who've been using the women's toilets for a long time who will have to have tricky conversations with HR about what they do now. How do you perceive those conversations going?
HR's job is to have tricky conversations. And in terms of infrastructure, there isn't a problem. You know, for years and years now, we have had gender-neutral, accessible toilets. You know, it's not that there isn't an option for people who don't feel comfortable using the same-sex facilities for their own sex, but someone has to have that tricky conversation, and that is the job of HR. But the problem is HR has been trained, often by Stonewall or other activist groups, to think that having those conversations is transphobic. And that what everyone else should do is fall in line with what the activist organisations want, rather than the law.
Maya, I got a Christmas card from Sex Matters, and well, most of the Christmas cards I got this year were about, you know, Merry Christmas was the usual top line. Your Christmas card was quite a lengthy guidance on what the law says about sex and gender, which was a very festive message, of course. But do you think that, you know, one of the problems that your side of the argument is having is that this law has come in, but you're really struggling to explain to people what it says, and that's why you're, you know, sending out these legal Christmas cards?
We didn't want to waste the stamp. We're a charity. The law is very simple. It's been made very clear and very simple by the Supreme Court. But you're right, it's difficult getting that message across when officials, when the government won't even say whether their own policy is lawful and won't lay the official guidance in front of Parliament. So we're having to do the job of the regulator and the job of the government in explaining the law. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be difficult, like Miriam says, for men to use the men's facilities, women to use the women's, and anyone who feels uncomfortable with that to use a gender-neutral option.
Maya Forstater from Sex Matters, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you for the Christmas cards.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, a government spokesman said, we review and update guidance wherever necessary to ensure it complies with the law, including the Supreme Court judgment.
Well, don't go away, because lots to come still on Britain's Newsroom. The BBC boss who quit after the controversial Gaza documentary has been rewarded with an OBE in the New Year's Honours List.
Yes, this is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Stay with us. See you in just a moment.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News, and we're now joined in the studio by our panel, Dr Renee Honderkamp and Nigel Nelson, to look at today's news. Nigel, what should we start with?
Well, we've got the accusations that the News Honours List is full of woke candidates who've got honours. The one that's causing the most problem is Charlotte Moore, the former BBC executive who was blamed for the BBC's controversial Gaza film. I'm never quite sure how honours are actually worked out anyway, but there are some other people there which some of the newspapers are accusing of being part of a woke honours list, where you've got the Girl Guiding boss, Angela Salt, who gets a CBE, and she initially brought trans girls into Girl Guiding, and then that was changed after the Supreme Court ruling. Then you've got Hilary O'Grady from the National Trust. She got in the neck because she did a review of National Trust properties linked to the slave trade.
Right, I mean...
But it does seem to be that, you know, all those...
And the vegan tampons, Nigel.
And the vegan...
The vegan tampons in the male toilets at Sizer Castle in Cumbria. I've been there, you know, actually. I had a nice dinner there a couple of years ago. It was very lovely. Well, I didn't need to make use of it, the vegan tampons, that is. But
how can tampons not be vegan?
Have you not looked it up since?
No, I haven't.
We had this discussion a few hours ago.
Not what I decided to Google this morning.
Well, it absolutely should be.
Does
The question is on top of your mind.
why men need tampons?
Well, that's a side issue.
Yeah, okay. That's a separate concern. That's a dangerous Google, which you will not be doing, absolutely.
On the work internet.
On this BBC boss hand of the OBE, Charlotte Moore, it's not just the Gaza documentary, Dr Renee, because she was also the chief content officer when that Panorama documentary went out where Donald Trump's footage was spliced. So she's got two major controversies.
But that was just an accident, Charlie.
Yeah.
It was just a little accident. It was an error.
Well, that'll stand up in court, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was also interested in the people that haven't got them as well. So I think the Gaza thing is a joke because they've been disgraced by this. It's kind of the final straw, the Gaza and their whole approach to Israel and that attack. But then I looked at who they gave gongs to in the female football team, and they didn't give it to all of them. In fact, notably, they missed out Michelle Aguimat, who, if it weren't for her, they would not have progressed in the competition because she scored that last-minute goal.
A gong for every lioness, is that what you're saying?
But how did they choose the ones they did give gongs to? This is what I don't understand. Does somebody just sit there and pull names out of a hat and go, look, we can only give 6, so let's just pick some names out?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhat like that, actually. They go sort of like, we've got only so many we can do for sports. We have to do it in a sort of some degree of prominence.
So not on skill or contribution?
I think it'd be like leadership qualities.
Could it be possible that some of them have refused? Some people turn them down?
Perhaps. I think unlikely.
I think we shouldn't speculate on the lionesses rejecting honours, but I think I can't see that in this case.
No, I can't
Sports
either.
people love.
I mean, if you're willing to play for your country, you're probably not.
You're probably willing to take an honour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, probably take it on. What else are we discussing today, Nigel? Because there was a slightly more charming story to discuss that doesn't involve the misery of the honours. New Year. Is it the New Year?
Yes. The New Year's Eve survey. And this shows that 6 in 10 adults aren't bothered about celebrating New Year. They found that people are saying that they'll have much more fun spending the night in rather than going out. So it's only kind of Gen Z, the 18 to 28s, who go out partying. People like me will be sat in front of the TV with a bottle of champagne. Yeah.
See, I'm not convinced that's the right way round. I think our current tranche of young people are the most boring in history. They don't drink. I am often heard to say on the Saturday Five that they should have more sex, drugs and rock and roll to just enlighten their lives, because I think they're really, really boring. And I think this demonstrates it. They're not drinking very much at all, although apparently they are drink driving, which I find very bizarre.
Well, it's more relaxed about it without actually doing it.
They're more relaxed about it, maybe because they don't have cars, because they're so woke, so it doesn't bother them in any way. But I think that it's quite sad, really.
I think, actually, that's right, I've got to stand in here, sorry, as a 29-year-old, so I'm just past the sort of 18 to 28 gap, so I probably will be having a few drinks on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
I think, actually, my generation and the generation just after me, we're cold and sober, looking at the mess that your generation made of the nation. And we're looking at. Well, we need to put away the booze and take a cold, hard look at the nightmares that we've inherited.
But maybe if you didn't put the booze away, you would see it more favourably.
Yes, and that would be a lie.
I do think also
Beer goggles would
people
be a
with
lie.
small children are not interested in New Year's Eve, because it's all very well staying up to 1 in the morning, but when your children might be awake throughout the night, or then you're up again at 5, the attraction kind of dies a little
So
bit.
this is quite interesting, because I love New Year's Eve much more than Christmas. I always have, but of course now we again in our lives have a 7-year-old. So this year what we've done, you'll like this, Miriam, is
you turn the clocks.
Booked at our local church the 7-year-old's New Year's Eve party that goes on until 8:30. Then there's a neighbourhood you can have some Prosecco and things, and then I imagine all those people with children would just disappear off home.
I know families where they've actually changed the clocks so that the children believe it's midnight and that they've stayed up to welcome in the new year, but it's actually only 8 o'clock.
There are just fewer places for people to go on New Year's Eve as well, and the Telegraph today was showing that Primrose Hill will be shut on New Year's Eve for the fireworks.
Yeah,
so it's getting harder to celebrate.
That's right. I mean, 30,000 people were there last year at Primrose Hill. Not an organised thing. They just turned up because they can see right over London. And I mean, it is a spectacular view. There's a bit of controversy over why this has happened.
Cost-cutting measure, I don't think so.
Well, one of the arguments is that they're getting rid of the Parks Police. The Parks Police handle that particular area. And in a bid to save 260 million, that they've got to go, therefore they can't police the people there. The Met say, no, that's not actually true. They just don't have enough people to go and do it. And I think that if there's a safety issue, someone was stabbed to death there previously. If there is a safety issue, you can understand why the police would say, actually, this is the wrong place to be.
All right. Nigel Nelson, Renee Hunterkamp, thank you very much for your time this morning. Plenty of you getting in touch on gbnews.com/your say. Jocelyn says, every time I go out partying on New Year's Eve, I suffer with a cold afterwards due to germs and everyone hugging. Well, I'm sorry about that.
Graceful.
If you're doing it outside on Primrose Hill, you'll be fine, Jocelyn.
Just hold your breath.
Yeah, just hold your breath. Exactly. Is that what you do? It's awful.
No, I just thought it's a good idea if you're worried about germs. Right. Wear a mask, that'll make New Year's Eve really fun.
Poor Aaron Armstrong over there listening to this, thinking, when are they going to come to me? Aaron, it's 32 minutes past 11. It's your time to shine.
On the verge of 33, Charlie, I would say. Good morning to you. Thanks very much indeed. The headlines from the newsroom. British counter-terrorism police are assessing historical social media posts by the British-Egyptian activist Al-Fattah after he described the killing of Zionists as heroic and said he hated white people. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper's launched a review into what she's described as serious information failures. Anthony Joshua's team have confirmed 2 of his close friends died in yesterday's car crash in Nigeria. Kevin Lateef Ayodele on the left and Sina Gami have been described as integral members of the boxers' team. The Cabinet Office has been accused of covering up for the royal family after the release of documents relating to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor were withdrawn from the National Archives shortly after being published. The Cabinet Office has blamed an administrative error. Donald Trump says he hopes to reach phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan very quickly and has warned Hamas would have hell to pay if it does not disarm. He had talks with the Israeli Prime Minister in Florida yesterday. And actor Idris Elba and ice dancers Torvald Dean lead the King's New Year's honours list. They, along with comedy actor Mira Sayal and England coach Serena Wiegman, have been knighted or given damehoods for their outstanding contributions. Your headlines. More from me at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, you may remember that HS2 bought hundreds of people's homes, but it now seems to be making millions renting them out.
This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. See you in a moment.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Quite a chilly feel out there through today, despite the fact that there's more sunshine on offer compared to yesterday. Just a few showers here and there, but generally the main story being this area of high pressure that's stretching from the northwest of us down across much of the UK, which is why it's generally fine. A lot of dry, sunny weather around. Like I say, just a few showers across some eastern parts, maybe some southern coastal areas seeing a couple of showers as well. Otherwise, lots of dry weather and lots of sunshine breaking through. But as I mentioned, it is a chilly feel out there. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year, and with a bit of a breeze towards some eastern and also some southeastern parts, well, that's going to make it feel even chillier as well. Then, as we go into this evening, well, lots of fine, calm weather for many places across much of Scotland. Lots of clear skies, albeit for Orkney and Shetland. A bit blustery here and some showery rain. Across Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies as well. And as a result, we're quite quickly going to see a bit of frost developing as we go through the start of the night. Slightly less chilly to start the night across much of England and Wales, but even here, apart from a few showers, lots of dry, clear weather. And then as we go overnight, with the generally calm, clear weather for most places, the exception being towards the northeast, where it will still be quite blustery. For most places, yes, we have that calm, clear weather, so temperatures taking a bit of a drop, and some fog, some freezing fog patches likely to develop, particularly across some southern, southeastern parts. Temperatures widely dropping close to, if not below freezing, like similar nights we could get to -7, -8 Celsius in some places. So a cold, frosty start for some of us on New Year's Eve, a foggy start in some places as well. A lot of that fog across the south, that will quite quickly clear away. And then it's generally a fine day for most and staying fine through the evening and overnight in the south, but further north turning increasingly windy with some wet and wintry weather pushing in.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Well, HS2 has quietly become a major property landlord, earning millions by renting out homes that were bought for parts of the rail project that were later scrapped.
Yes, out of the 782 homes which have been voluntarily bought along the route since 2012, 602 have been rented out. So we're asking, was HS2 just a money-making scheme? There's one man to ask that question to. It's the Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange, Andrew Gilligan. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Was HS2 just a money-making scheme?
Well, I was always slightly puzzled when I was, I was transport advisor in Number 10, and I was slightly puzzled when I realised that they were buying up land and properties on the leg to Leeds, on which building wasn't supposed to, at that point, start for another 10 years. And I was wondering why they did this. And maybe this is part of the answer. As you say, they've got 600 properties that they're renting out. More than 300 of them are actually on bits of the scheme which have now been cancelled. So what are they still doing, owning those properties? I think it's largely because a lot of officials in the DfT were hoping that somebody would magically come along and reinstate the bits that were cancelled. But even the government has now said that the eastern leg, for instance, from the Midlands to Yorkshire is never going to come back. And I don't think there's any real prospect to the western leg either from the Midlands to Manchester. So I think it's time to bite the bullet, sell those properties, make some money from the taxpayer, and get on with building something that the country needs more than a high-speed rail line.
Well, that is part of the controversy here, isn't it? Because you could argue from a pragmatic point of view, they own these homes. Instead of letting them sit there empty, why not rent them out? But the question is that rental income going back to the taxpayer who's funding this project, or is it going into the pockets of the private company?
Well, in effect, it is going back to the taxpayer because it means the taxpayer doesn't have to provide quite as much money as it otherwise would if the rental income wasn't being received for those homes. But look, the big scandal about HS2 is quite how much money it is costing and quite how little we are getting for it. As you know, the whole project, which originally supposed to cost 35 billion, that's for the whole Y-shaped project from London to the Midlands with branches off to Manchester and Leeds. Well, that's, you know, even the bit we're still building, the bit from London to the Midlands, is now going to cost 3 times that money in nominal terms. It is going to 80, 90 million pounds. And the incredible scandal of how the private companies building HS2 have fleeced the taxpayer and how the whole thing was designed on a ridiculously gold-plated basis. That's one of the key issues with HS2. That's one of the reasons it's never getting any further than Birmingham.
Yes, Andrew, you say tens of billions above what it was anticipated to cost. £7 billion spent on it last year by the government. The 14 million that they'll be getting from rent to these properties, obviously just a drop in the ocean there. But what do you make about the fact that a lot of these homes are on this section that has been cancelled? Does that indicate potentially a retained interest from HS2, from those companies in those sections?
Well, weirdly, there are 2 bits that were cancelled. There's the eastern leg to Leeds that was cancelled in 2021, and then there's the western leg to Manchester that's cancelled in 23. And the eastern leg to Leeds, this government has said this is never happening. We are going to sell back the land that we bought to build it. Don't know why they haven't done that yet, and I don't know why they're raking in the shekels from that. The western leg, I mean, I think that is also very unlikely to be reinstated, the leg to Manchester. And I think it's time to start saying, yes, we're going to sell those properties as well. And we're going to spend the money on, for instance, local train services, buses, local roads, things that aren't in great shape at the moment, but that the country actually needs more than a high-speed line. Like you said, Charlie, £7 billion a year we're spending on this. And that's just for the bit between London and the West Midlands. That's almost 60% more than we're spending on local public transport across the whole country.
Andrew Gilligan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Charlie, we talked about the financial cost, but there's a huge emotional cost here as well. Imagine if you have almost without choice sold your house, perhaps your family home, perhaps it's been in the family for generations, to the government because there's no choice. You know there's going to be a railway line built. And now you find there's not going to be a railway line. And not only that, the government, or rather HS2, is renting it out for a profit. It might be pretty hard to swallow. Yes, I think the hundreds of owners of those homes, they could deserve an apology or two. Right, it's 11:43 and we do have some statements to read for you because a spokesman for HS2 said rent charged on properties acquired for HS2 is income for the taxpayer, ultimately offsetting costs incurred by the project. Hundreds of properties spanning a variety of prices were voluntarily sold to the government for the new high-speed rail network. And the Department for Transport spokesperson said, we will dispose of surplus property in a sensitive and sensible way, including developing a disposal strategy that ensures we do not flood local markets and achieve the best outcome for the taxpayer. Still to come here on Britain's Newsroom, the New Year's honours list is out, but with awards handed to the head of the National Trust, who put
vegan tampons in the men's toilets in a beautiful castle in Cumbria. Are these gongs just for services to wokery?
But first, we have the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst there's plenty of dry and bright weather across the UK at the moment, it's a different story around southern Europe. There's some rain sweeping its way towards Madeira and towards the Canary Islands through the next couple of days. It's wet across southern parts of Spain and northern Morocco. Some thundery rain likely again as we go through later this week. And further east, also some outbreaks of rain affecting parts of Greece and towards Cyprus. And some of these could be heavy and thundery at times. More changeable weather to come as we head into the new year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News. Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the cars.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 11:47 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates, and the King's 2026 New Year's Honours List has been released and gongs have been handed to a police chief constable who was accused of discriminating against white people, but also the head of the National Trust who she didn't personally put them in, but the trust put vegan tampons in men's toilets at Sizer Castle in Cumbria. So we're asking, are these services too woke with these New Year's honours? And Miriam, I think the National Trust one will be the source of a lot of controversy. Firstly, I think I almost feel a bit sorry for Hilary McGrady, who's got this honour. You get something, you get a gong, you get an OBE or whatever, and then everyone's talking about vegan tampons. It must be pretty dispiriting.
I know, and of course it was a ridiculous thing to do, and they've done many things that I would say are more woke than interested in preserving our history, but nevertheless... The National
One
Trust...
second, you actually know why they're vegan, don't you? You've worked it out.
Well, they do contain some animal products like fragrances and coatings, and sometimes tested on animals for safety.
On animals.
So there you go, too much information in my view. But I do think overall the National Trust does an incredibly important job. I mean, I love going to those stately homes and seeing what life used to be like, and it is a shame that they've gone down this route, but also a shame that they're going to be criticised now for receiving an award that they probably do deserve.
Well, the campaign group Restore Trust, they did an internal poll last year about what they want from the members of the National Trust. And funnily enough, it's more of a traditional focus on conservation. That's why people go to these places. The National Trust job, they say, is to look after historic buildings, not to provide sanitary products. However, one of our directors today did say that it would be very helpful to have one of those tampons in the men's in case you have a nosebleed. So there are some people who welcome such moves.
Well, a National Trust spokesperson has said, we try to accommodate the needs of all visitors by offering a variety of facilities and hygiene products. We're committed to ensuring our policies and practice align with the recent Supreme Court judgment. We're currently reviewing our existing policies to ensure compliance with the law. I think that's what you call a catch-all statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's go through some of the other honours involved here, because, of course, there's the BBC one as well, Miriam, the BBC boss being handed an OBE despite being blamed for that Gaza documentary, and also was the chief content officer when the Panorama programme with Donald Trump went out. Lots of politicians, well, Annalise Dodds getting an award as well. She was just 13 months as Keir Starmer's first Shadow Chancellor, but still got that gong as well. Tristan Hunt, Shadow Education Secretary under Ed Miliband. He's received a knighthood. Sir Tristram's a pretty strong one, isn't it?
I do think the problem is that because of social media, everybody knows what everybody thinks about all politics, and therefore all these awards have become political because you know what people think.
Right, let's speak now to the director of Restore Trust and also editor of the Custodian Substack. It's Zuditu Gebreyehones. Zuditu, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, we were talking about the OBE in the National Trust. Your reaction to that announcement?
Just very quickly, I'm former director of Restore Trust, no longer there. But on Hilary McGrady's OBE appointment, I just think for someone who's presided over the destruction of one of our greatest institutions, the biggest cultural preservation institution in Europe, I think it's a sad story, actually, because, you know, we've got a Director General who's put her interests, the agendas of the people around her, the executive team, first, and heritage preservation second. And to be given such a prestigious award, I think, is not a good sign, and it's not a good lesson to others.
But Hilary McGrady, she's not here to defend herself. I mean, I'm sure she'd push back against that as well.
Do you think that it's almost become automatic that people in these prestigious roles will get some sort of award after they've served for a number of years?
It certainly seems like that. I mean, with the National Trust, of course, Hilary would defend herself. I think the record speaks for itself, and we've seen it in countless headlines over the past several years. But essentially, you know, more floors, more wings of houses, more houses entirely closed off to the public when the National Trust was all about making heritage accessible to people, and vanity projects on non-National Trust-owned land like the Manchester Castlefield viaducts and things, you know, I think.
Conservation and restoring our national heritage, perhaps less on left-wing politics. Right, well, thank you very much, Zuditu, and that's it from Britain's Newsroom.
Well, up next, Good Afternoon Britain will be here with Tom and Catherine, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
I'll see you in the new year. I'm off until 2026. Thank you so much for all your time and support this year.
And I'll be seeing the new year here in the studio, so please tune in.
An investigation now into what went wrong over Alaa Abdel Fattah. Just how could the government get this so precariously incorrect? Well, more developing on that this afternoon.
Yes, we will also be talking about those New Year's honours, of course. Solar power. Could the government be giving us money to bring our bills down? Also, another Meghan and Harry aide has quit.
All after your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Quite a chilly feel out there through today, despite the fact that there's more sunshine on offer compared to yesterday. Just a few showers here and there, but generally the main story being this area of high pressure that's stretching from the northwest of us down across much of the UK, which is why it's generally fine. A lot of dry, sunny weather around. Like I say, just a few showers across some eastern parts, maybe some southern coastal areas seeing a couple of showers as well. Otherwise, lots of dry weather and lots of sunshine breaking through. But as I mentioned, it is a chilly feel out there. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year, and with a bit of a breeze towards some eastern and also some southeastern parts, well, that's going to make it feel even chillier as well. Then, as we go into this evening, well, lots of fine, calm weather for many places across much of Scotland. Lots of clear skies, albeit for Orkney and Shetland. A bit blustery here and some showery rain. Across Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies as well. And as a result, we're quite quickly going to see a bit of frost developing as we go through the start of the night. Slightly less chilly to start the night across much of England and Wales, but even here, apart from a few showers, lots of dry, clear weather. And then as we go overnight, with the generally calm, clear weather for most places, the exception being towards the northeast, where it will still be quite blustery. For most places, yes, we have that calm, clear weather, so temperatures taking a bit of a drop, and some fog, some freezing fog patches likely to develop, particularly across some southern, southeastern parts. Temperatures widely dropping close to, if not below freezing. Like similar nights, we could get to -7, -8 Celsius in some places. So a cold, frosty start for some of us on New Year's Eve, a foggy start in some places as well. A lot of that fog across the south, that will quite quickly clear away. And then it's generally a fine day for most and staying fine through the evening and overnight in the south, but further north turning increasingly windy with some wet and wintry weather pushing in.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our